The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. The webinar, So You Think Your Game is Localized. My name is Carolina, and I'm Marketing Coordinator at SYSTRAN. Today, we'll be presenting the first of a three-part series focused on gaming and the importance of localization. During these 30 minutes, we'll focus on the challenges of localization. And in the sessions to come, the second webinar will go into a practical look on localization and how to resolve it. And the last session will cover the return on investment. Please be part of our conversation. All of your questions and comments can be posted in the chat area featured in the tools. And then at the end of the webinar, we'll have a Q&A section. For those of us that are just joining us, welcome. So XTM is an enterprise-level translation management system that allows all of your content to reside in one location and permits maximum reuse and consistency of data. And SYSTRAN is a pioneer in machine translation since 1968. We have joined forces together by integrating our solution, and together we create a comprehensive ecosystem for translation. Now I would like to introduce you to the presenters. We have Elizabeth Sanusi from XTM.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Elizabeth Sanusi, Business Development Director at XTM.
And we have Victor Ramirez from SYSTRAN.
Thank you, Carolina. Victor Ramirez, Director of Business Solutions for SYSTRAN.
Okay, and I'll pass it on to Victor. Take it from there.
And briefly, just as a recap again, we're just going to be talking about gaming and the need for localization through the perspective of the tools that are available in machine translation and what XTM is doing to facilitate that.
Great. Yeah, okay. So thanks everybody, thanks for joining here. So in this webinar, we're going to cover, so just to get started here, why localize? In this webinar, we're going to cover these items here: localizing, terminology, UI strings, EO, subtitles and audio, global marketing, customer support, and then we're going to cover a crystal ball for the future of what is to come. And then finally, as Carolina said at the end, a little bit of Q&A and discussion. And so,
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we're working on coordinating both of our conversations with everybody. So we're very glad to be here right now. But it's really important that as we're looking at the presentation and what localization means, it is a multi-headed beast that's going to require flexibility and really tenacity to be able to master it and have a global presence that everybody's looking to have. So as Elizabeth had mentioned just a second ago, we're going to be looking at specific localization, some of the terminology that's associated with it, including user interfaces, voiceover, subtitles, and global marketing. And of course, we cannot leave out customer service and the importance that customer service plays in bringing everything full circle. So we would like to make this as interactive as possible. So please make sure that by the end of it, the crystal ball is what we're identifying as how you see the future, your input to it, as we've identified some of these challenges in the industry and some of the opportunities that we are now presented with. We do want to make sure that we understand and we hear your voice as you're seeing some of these challenges come up throughout your doing.
Right, and then as Victor's kind of identified here, just this agenda really reflects it, is localization isn't just one thing that you can do and just be done with it. It's really a holistic process, and it's actually really customized based upon your game or your product. Some of the things that we're going to cover may apply more strongly to you than others, but hopefully all of it's applicable in some way. But in our discussions with customers, especially here in gaming, one of the things that's been a really common theme that comes up is when we talk to customers, it's really rare that you guys lack awareness of how important it is to localize. I mean, even if all of you guys on the webinar today, so some familiar faces and some new people, so that's great to have both. I think everybody has a different level of experience and exposure, sort of knowledge about localization, but I think everybody here, we could probably ask that question at the end, like, do you know that it's important to localize? Everybody knows it's important to localize. So that's awesome, right? But often what's holding people back from that full scope of localization, like, so you think your game is really localized, is, there's a couple things. There's complexity and there's cost, or there's both of those things. But as we're going to present today, and also, so in a high level in this webinar, but in the subsequent ones we'll go into more technical detail, there's a lot of there's a lot of things, tools and tricks that can help you overcome the challenges of cost and complexity in all of these different areas. And the great thing that we think about being able to present to you guys who work in gaming, I'm sure there may be other people too, but generally gaming, is that this industry tends to be a lot farther ahead when it comes to technology and innovation as regards to localization. There's already a lot of creativity and innovation and resourcefulness in game localization, but we'll continue to go through some points to help get some additional ideas on how to start localizing different types of content that we've listed here in your work. And so getting all these content types localized into a game gives you a cohesiveness that otherwise just makes the product feel kind of incomplete. And that's why hitting all these elements for a truly localized game are critical. So let's get further into it. I'm going to hand it over to Victor next here.
Yeah, so why localize? You know, it's a $135 billion industry that is going to reward anybody who listens and understands, you know, the needs of the customer, the needs of the market itself. So it's no longer just a game where it used to just be entertainment for kids as people looked at it. Now the demographics have completely changed. We're looking at stress release, you know, video games, skill building video games, including social platforms that allow for people to communicate globally and understand possible circumstances that one may be experiencing. So we can very simply put it as, you know, it's not one size fits all. And that's what makes it such a challenge. You know, we have to understand, you know, what these demands are and what we're doing to develop, you know, the industry so that we can set the stage for efficiency and return on investment. Return on investment is how we are able to continue to develop, function, and grow. And it's how our bosses are always happy in being able to continue to fund us with these projects that we want to take on. So once you've launched, you're going to need to be attentive to the situation. You need to localize, you know, and satisfy the gamer so that their allegiance will end up returning back to you in satisfaction with a return on investment.
Right, totally. And so to further that, like I said above, localization can mean different things to different people in the product that they're working on. But like Victor said, no matter what it means, to do it effectively and get that return on investment, what you need to do is centralize content, create efficiencies in process, automate things, and reuse content to the maximum extent possible. So we're going to go into a little bit more detail about the ways to do this for the different types of content that you might have here in localization. Good. All right.
Yeah, you know, so we all understand that there is a need for localization and a need to be understood, right? Once you understand that part of it, that is the biggest hurdle. A lot of times we do get bogged down with our own beliefs that, you know what, we don't need to do that. Our game is universal. Our communication style is understood. But until you really get into the weeds about the specific demographic that you may be working with, you really can't guarantee yourself that. You know, there are two critical tools that we use in localization, translation memories and user dictionaries, where translation memories can quickly identify, you know, known strings for consistency, accuracy, as well as expedited outputs. You know, glossaries, as we understand them in the industry today, really start to lay down a foundation for localization of the game terminology and the character development that's going to be occurring over time. Glossaries and dictionaries now, as opposed to in the past, can be loaded as files like XMLs for TBX or TMX. So we have advanced in our ability to kind of incorporate some of these programs and simplify the processes so that these tasks will not be so daunting anymore.
Right, totally. And as Victor said, so terminology, not just translation memory, but really terminology and TMs together. Terminology can be really the backbone of a well-localized product. It's actually even more important in this sector in gaming because so much of what we're doing is invented, right? Like the character is a creature that no one's ever seen before, and he slays some other villain with some tool that you've invented. So you've got to really you've got to keep track of these terms and apply them consistently throughout all of your collateral. This really makes it critical to build and to maintain those term bases and by extension translation memory and apply them across all of your localized content. And this gives you that consistent voice and the high quality that will really resonate with your players and create that totally immersive experience that's going to make your game stand out.
Yeah, just like you know, when we're talking about everybody discusses the. Oh, sorry, I just skipped you on that one. I'm going to come back.
Okay. No, yeah, that's all right. You want to say a bit more about that one?
No, you're good.
Okay. Yeah, so just to kind of follow up, right? One of the areas, I mean, after you get past that terminology piece, one of the things that people immediately think of when we're talking about localizing a game, right, is just the UI or the strings. That's really, you know, that's a good place to start, obviously, because if you don't do that, you don't have a localized game at all. So that's really where you'd start with doing localization. But can you you guys probably know, it can really become very easily complex and kind of cumbersome. But there's lots of tools and tricks that we have together jointly and separately that'll help you address these challenges. And again, like Carolina said in the beginning, this webinar is a 3-part series. And so we're really just going into very high level here to introduce you to some of the concepts we'll develop further technically later on. But there's things like constantly updating string repos that are to be monitored by connecting your TMS to your repository, and you automate the translation process to get new strings translated constantly and very quickly turned around. And that doesn't require a lot of manual intervention or any at all in certain cases. Something like XTM, RTMS handles a variety of file types for software, so that'll simplify the process further. There's additional features that facilitate this process, like ID-based matching for identical strings that gives you perfect context matching. And then additionally, something you can do on the development also when you're going into translation is associating additional metadata in your UI translation file. And we'll, again, go into more detail in the subsequent webinars. You can give your linguists additional context, like there's a specific way you can do this. You can give them metadata that provides context, either gender or an image perhaps about character or dialogue that helps them translate more effectively and appropriately in the context that you're intending. And so, again, all of that integration into the centralized TMS allows you to associate with that your translation collateral, right? Terminology database, translation memory, and with all this content, you get enforcement of key terms, terminology, and then you get the high linguistic quality. So,
yeah, you've realized the importance of that localization. You understood that terminology of that localization. All of them are that process with it. One of the things that we don't want to overlook is that we don't want to overlook these trailers, videos that have been previously done. We do have programs that are on today. Just the trailer serves the whole today. The commercial organization will walk them through the experience that you created. All that to make sure it's available. You want to walk down, you want them to so they can fully experience that game the way it was intended or designed. Like vocabulary and developing machine translation can now transcribe files back into Word file. You will be able to just put it into a voice production, whether it's an enunciator or provided as a script, outside characters getting developed. But machine translation by games specific tags of them, translate them properly, not having to go through and do everything manually they have to in the past.
Right. Yeah, and so where the TMS becomes important there, again, with these type of files, is that certain content, like you said, subtitles, which need to be translated to support natively in XTM. But as Victor says, even content that's handled outside the TMS in a separate process, that can be integrated into your project workflow, which allows you to track it in the TMS and stay organized. It's obviously part of this whole bit that you need to keep together.
And so we continue to move through these steps, and they are kind of like boxes. You're checking the boxes that you're developing, just like you would any market. It's no different in that sense. You're going to localize. You're going to understand that there's means of communicating, methodologies of being translated, whether it's audio files or gamer chat. You are also going to have to be able to put it out, right? So you developed a good product. You understand what it's going to be doing. Now you have to be able to get that out to that customer or that front-facing customer to possibly lure them into and saying, hey, we're going to try this. So game development and localization of it is going to be your initial focus, but we need to be able to anticipate moving forward, what we're going to be able to do and how we're going to globally reach our customers. So now with the use of API connectors and plugins, being heard correctly is a seamless operation, and it's a repeatable process. You can maintain the same voice, the same tone, and communicate globally at various levels. So machine translation is going to allow your internal team to seamlessly connect through various mediums, right? Like we had said, text, files, audios, or even working within workflows, and communicate so that you can relate to your users, and your users will return back to you.
Right, totally. So like that marketing and ad copy, all that creative content, these are areas where quality and style are really of utmost importance. And so you're going to need to use the right linguist for the work. And often that process for that type of content can be pretty collaborative and subject to multiple rounds of revision and vetting. from, you know, having that done by additional editors or linguists or in-context reviewers. So XTM has a number of features that support those processes, from in-context editing that allows you visual translate with the visual reference of rendering the native file format in certain contexts or certain types, to a transcreation feature that is specifically designed for content like this, where you might need multiple translation suggestions for any given source phrase. Like say you're trying to render, you know, your tagline in a way that's effective in German, but it's a totally different translation that you would with the wording of what you have in English. And so XTM has a feature that allows you to do that. So you can collaborate, discuss, and even back translate things like that in XTM to get that marketing or ad content with the exact style and voice that you want. Again, so just having this all integrated with the rest of your content, these other pieces we've spoken about, and then what we're going to speak about, and plus that terminology and the translation memory that you've always, you know, you're maintaining and developing, it makes everything really consistent, neat, and unified. And that's just that key quality piece that is going to give you the great localized game you're seeking.
Yeah, and what we don't want to do is anything. It is because when we're looking at things, everything's about automation nowadays and streamlining and how do we become more efficient. So everybody always looks to the systems and how they can do the human factor of it. What we don't want to ever do is overlook the importance of that human element. That human element is what brings everything close back together with it, right? Whether it's through post-editing, you know, the creation and the development of those dictionaries, those glossaries, and everything moving forward. It is a very important thing that we cannot overlook, and that is the human interaction and the customer support with it. Elizabeth, would you mind telling us a little bit about how XTM helps with merging that human?
Yeah, so again, like when more specific to this area, the marketing, right? There's just so many different pieces that often have a very, you know, high level of manual intervention. So the features that XTM has support all these. And again, what Victor is saying in terms of it automates a lot of processes that were previously done manually. And so for transcreation, review, you know, that sort of thing. And also there's additional features that we can go into later on, you know, that allow for in context editing of certain file types that ensures that you get the information that you need from, you know, translators.
Yeah, so, you know, so you've created and you've localized everything successfully. You know, it's now your target, and you've developed a global brand. It's now time to kind of, you've got to dig in at this point. You know, you can't get your foot off the pedal. Customer support becomes a critical piece that keeps a customer returning, really fulfills an experience, whether it's a good or a challenged experience. Customer support and service has the ability to really rectify or extend onto an existing experience with it. So, you know, when you're digging in, you know, you have to understand global support means that you've got a global customer. If you don't have global support, the global customer is going to be limited in many, many ways. So you have the ability through machine translation now, and through the incorporation of partnerships like XTM's, where you can go ahead and have that global communication. Administration or documentation that administration handles, invoices, inter-office communication, anything when you're talking about a global company, it's important. So we've fundamentally made like Microsoft App Packs to be able to answer a quick and easy way of translating something, being able to get on your computer and enter into a chat conversation with a coworker, having customer service use that same chat conversation to actually communicate with customers globally. So the establishment of customer service centers anywhere in the world really is facilitated by the ability to be able to have machine translation do all the heavy lifting. Everybody continues to translate, or excuse me, everybody continues to speak in their native language. However, the recipients will all get it in their own native language. There is no misunderstandings about what it is or lost in translation type of messages that come across. So, you know, you can set up bots to respond to 45 plus languages, or even just set up, like I said, live chat conversations between gamers or tech support, so that you can extend that experience and be understood at every single level.
Right, and this is really an area where MT, machine translation, is going to give you those total amazing gains in productivity, and that'll bring you that level of total localization that you're seeking. User-generated content, like the type Victor is talking about, can be handled with MT, and then again, you can also integrate it with your TMS and translation memory if you want to reuse it, right? Some of it's repetitive, some of it's unique. It just really depends on, you know, your workflow and what kind of content you're generating. But nonetheless, you can integrate these two things and still save and reuse. And then you can also integrate your TMS with customer service apps like Zendesk, for example. XTM integrates with Zendesk. And Victor says, you know, the point we're making here is that you're ensuring that your players have support in their language, and also that, you know, you communicate with them, and they can communicate with you, or they can also communicate with other players, you know, like on forums or knowledge bases to get info and tips and tricks on their language. I mean, there's tons of ways that people are doing this nowadays, but you need to kind of, you know, you don't want to let technology sort of overcome you. You need to keep ahead of the curve, because people are always developing ways to circumvent these obstacles, because gaming is highly collaborative, and this type of user-generated content is really a key area where you can stand out. But one of the things that has come up in the past is just that cost of localizing this content, because it just tends to be such a high volume of words. And people have always considered that, you know, pricing is just out of reach, right? Like if you look at the traditional process, you want to look at this, some online help, it could be like, you know, 90,000 words, and that's exorbitant, right? Just one language. But that's where the machine translation becomes really, really cost effective. And then you know, using these creative technology solutions is going to get the stuff done. You know, you're going to get the stuff translated, and you're going to have it out there for reuse. So, you know, this is just another piece of that puzzle that is going to help your game and your whole, you know, localized content create that immersive, total localized experience, just much more high quality. Okay, so we're about to kind of wrap up, I think. Yeah.
You know, we've painted a pretty big and broad picture of the challenges that we've seen in the industry, and some of the approaches that are being taken to be able to address and correct some of them. You know, the future is now, and that's why the whole point of the crystal ball, right? We've got more interest, technology, and resources than we've ever had, you know, in our history. Global presence is now a much, much easier thing to do than ever before. We just have to be in tune with it. So it does require focus, you know, on the opportunity and the commitment to understand your customer and the industry needs. It does require, you know, attentive behavior of just making sure that you're listening to people, that you're listening to that customer, that you're responding to it, or at least making the decision for whatever reason to be able to direct it in another direction. So every day is going to bring us a little bit closer to supporting what we see as a true real-time translation. You know, what we would like to open this up to you guys on is, you know, what's in your crystal ball? You know, please share with us, you know, and let's work together to make these wishes and dreams a reality, because the only way we've gotten to this point has been through the ability of collaboration of companies and the passion and soul that people want to go ahead and put into these games.
Right. Yeah. I mean, exactly as you said. I mean, we're taking it from the TMS angle. This is organization and reuse and reuse of content and automation of process. But even in our area in XTM, innovation is happening all the time. The quality of machine translation, for example, is just so far ahead of where it was in the past, even only just a few years ago. And the applications of it are just so varied and useful that it's really impossible to not take use of it, right? And then on our side, innovations in artificial intelligence are making improvements to translation workflow and the way the files are processed, and those also analyzed. So that's going to provide further cost savings and process improvements on the TMS side. So there's really a lot of things that are pretty exciting that are on the horizon, both in machine translation, translation management, and artificial intelligence. And so, you know, we're pretty excited about what we have going on, and we'd like to hear a bit more from you about what your thoughts are. So.
All right, thank you, Victor and Elizabeth, for the presentation. So now we open the floor, the discussion for everybody. We also would like to hear what you would like to see on our next webinar, which will be the more on-hands demos. So if you have any requests for next time, you can let us know here in the chat area, or if you have any questions at the moment. Do you see any?
Any questions?
Everybody, you know, we had sent out a couple of messages leading up to this, that it is a three-stage kind of a discussion. We wanted to make sure that we did have, you know, what we identified as the issues of the industry, the challenges that were being faced. We wanted to be able to put those forward as far as what we see, but we would love to get your input, get that in, so that it is a collaboration of these conversations, so that we can see your subjects are important to us. Allow us to not only point out what we needed to for this particular time that we've spent together, but more importantly, you know, get into the details behind how we do things, what you will see, give you samples, videos, demonstrations of how easy or how much simpler a process can be, or the development of the newest technologies. So please, your feedback is extremely important for us to be able to grow in this industry and for all of us to be able to benefit in some way, shape, or form.
Right, and our solutions are always predicated on the needs of our customers, so it's really important for us to hear back from you. So we'd love to hear that. Looks like there's a question that's more centered around that transcription piece, but I'd like to actually save that one for later because it's a little bit complex to describe in the time we have available. We've got a couple minutes left. Are there any other questions from you guys, the attendees? I know you're muted, but you can type in the chat window, or you can also follow up with us afterwards via email if you have questions that you would like answered. And again, we'll publicize the next parts of the series and go into more detail about all these solutions. Okay.
Okay, and what we'll do is, in case if you guys didn't have all the information, we'll make sure that there's an email that goes out following this this event so that you guys have all of our contact information. We'd love to collect those questions. Like I'm seeing some of the questions coming in are a little bit more more technical than we want to get into this conversation for the purposes of respecting your time. But we do want to address them. So we'll make sure that you do have our contact information at the end of the day, by the end of the day.
Yeah, okay. All right. So thank you guys all for joining. I appreciate your time and looking forward to seeing you, Philip Steiger and John Weisgerber from XTM, SYSTRAN and XTM respectively will probably be leading the next discussions. We look forward to seeing you in the next webinars. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a great day. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you.